2 hours ago, seismic sensors buried deep beneath Pozzuoli picked up a signal that defies all logic. The Earth didn't just shake, it tore apart for the first time in 487 years. The containment system holding back Campi Flegrei is failing, posing a catastrophic question. What happens to the 500,000 souls living on top of a fracturing supervolcano? This crisis has volcanologists scrambling to rewrite their predictive models, as the Campi Flegrei caldera, a sleeping giant stretching beneath Naples, bears no resemblance to its famous neighbor, Vesuvius, just 9 kilometers away. You cannot photograph this mountain because it is not a peak but a depression, a 12-kilometer-wide scar hidden beneath bustling towns, shipping harbors, and the daily lives of 500,000 people. This caldera was born from a cataclysm. The Campanian ignimbrite eruption 40,000 years ago blasted 500 cubic kilometers of rock into the sky, leaving ash deposits that still bury parts of Eastern Europe today. Since the era of the Roman Empire, this land has breathed, rising and falling in a slow, powerful cycle known as bradisism, leaving evidence like the marine markings on the ancient temple of Serapis, where the sea once swallowed the stone. In 1538, after centuries of swelling, the ground finally burst open to create Monte Nuovo, forming an entire mountain from nothing in just 8 days. But Campi Flegrei's true danger lies in its camouflage. There is no towering summit or crater rim to warn you. Instead, 24 distinct volcanic vents are scattered across the floor, mostly concealed under neighborhoods where kids play soccer and families sit down for dinner. The population density here rivals almost any hazard zone on the planet, a ticking clock that ran out at 1:25 a.m. on March 13, 2025. That is when the Vesuvius Observatory network lit up with emergency alarms. A magnitude 4.4 earthquake had ruptured 2.5 kilometers beneath Pozzuoli, but this was far from a routine tremor. The seismic waveforms revealed a terrifying anomaly: brittle failure. Since February 15th, monitoring stations have logged an unprecedented spike in activity, with 672 quakes rocking the caldera in just 4 days. 2 magnitude 3.9 events struck completely different zones, one out in the Gulf of Pozzuoli and another directly beneath the Solfatara Picciarelli complex, proving the acceleration is undeniable. In 2024, the region averaged 612 quakes a month. By February 2025, that number was hit in just 96 hours, yet the raw data only scratches the surface. Advanced artificial intelligence systems at the INGV detected what human eyes missed: thousands of invisible micro-earthquakes clustering along a razor-thin ring beneath the swelling ground. Dr. Giacomo Rapignani and his team at GFZ found these tremors concentrated at depths between 2 and 3 kilometers, the exact zone where the crust is most fragile, with each quake carving a fresh scar into the rock. These seismic signatures show fractures hunting for an escape route, propagating outward in brittle failure patterns that match laboratory simulations of catastrophic structural collapse. Gone is the ductile bending seen in past decades. Scientists are now watching the crust snap in real time, while GPS stations across Pozzuoli report a relentless vertical rise of 157.5 centimeters since 2005. It is the speed of this rise that terrifies the experts. In January 2025 alone, the ground surged upward by 20 centimeters, with the Rioni Terra station recording the most extreme displacement. Following the February swarm, the uplift velocity skyrocketed to 30 millimeters per month, and by March, some zones were rising 3 centimeters every 30 days. Rates unseen since the crisis of 1982 that forced 40,000 people to flee. The deformation is not just vertical. The Solo baseline measuring horizontal strain shows the entire caldera is being stretched like taffy, causing roads to split open overnight. Centuries-old buildings are developing fresh structural cracks, and the urgency has shifted protocols. Monthly measurements became weekly, and now, updates are issued daily as the ground refuses to stop rising. This was merely the opening salvo, as traditional models assumed that ring faults would act as a cage, containing the pressure within the established circular boundaries of the caldera. Campi Flegrei is tearing up the rulebook. New seismic tomography shows fractures shooting outward like spokes on a wheel, a shift identified by Dr. Christopher Kilburn from University College London. Instead of tracing ancient fault lines, these fresh cracks are slicing straight through virgin rock, driven by a stress field so intense it is carving its own path to the surface. While ring faults typically act like pressure valves that release energy predictably, these radial fractures are wildcards that can propagate with terrifying speed. These cracks can bridge deep magma reservoirs to the surface in a matter of hours rather than years, creating a three-dimensional fracture network at 3 kilometers depth, where temperatures soar to 400 degrees Celsius. These fissures turn into superhighways for superheated fluids, and every new connection weakens the rock above, making the next fracture even easier to form as the system nears a tipping point. Material scientists call this critical percolation, the moment when isolated cracks link up to form a continuous highway for magma, and this geometry has thrown every eruption forecast into chaos since February 2025. Between the 15th and 20th of that month, the volcano unleashed its most violent earthquake swarm since modern monitoring began, producing numbers that stagger the imagination. 672 earthquakes struck in less than 5 days. But the sheer volume is less concerning than the acceleration within acceleration that researchers are witnessing. The intervals between tremors are collapsing from hours to minutes, and finally to seconds, creating burst-like sequences where multiple quakes hit simultaneously, a phenomenon that has become the new normal. Dr. Flora Giudice Pietro from the observatory has documented this ominous shift since 2021, noting that standard swarms have evolved into something far more dangerous. These are no longer isolated shakes, they are avalanches of seismicity, each one striking deeper and harder than the last, signaling the total failure of the upper 2 to 3 kilometers of the crust. AI-driven catalogs have exposed the true scale of the threat. Where human analysts counted hundreds of events, machine learning found thousands, revealing a shallow crust that now resembles Swiss cheese. The rock is riddled with fresh fractures, and every passing hour compounds the damage to a system already on the brink. These are not just tremors, they are the sound of the earth breaking under impossible pressure. The aftermath shocked even the veterans. The Solfatara crater is now ground zero, where new vents are ripping open weekly in spots where Roman tourists once idly watched sulfur bubbles. Carbon dioxide emissions have gone vertical, jumping from 15 tons a day in 2018 to over 4,000 tons today, while surface temperatures paint an even grimmer picture, with fumaroles hitting 128 degrees Celsius. That is the highest temperature ever recorded, up from 110 degrees just a decade ago. And thermal cameras show this heat is not just intensifying, it is migrating. Deadly hotspots are creeping beneath parking lots and building foundations, releasing gases with chemical fingerprints like helium-3 that scream of a deep magmatic origin. The scientific community is split. One faction believes this is hydrothermal overpressure, while others fear magma is physically rising, a theory supported by asphalt bubbling in the summer heat and anomalies appearing without warning. Patches of dead vegetation are expanding daily as acidic gases suffocate root systems, and some zones have become so toxic that monitoring equipment corrodes into useless scrap within weeks. The volcano is venting with an aggression unseen since 1538, creating a clash of theories inside the Naples headquarters of the INGV. One camp sees a classic magmatic intrusion, molten rock muscling its way to the surface, while the opposition argues for a hydrothermal crisis driven by superheated water and gas. The data is maddeningly ambiguous. Gas chemistry shows signatures of both magma and hydrothermal fluids, with helium isotopes pointing deep, while carbon dioxide ratios suggest shallow processing. Seismic velocities look like fluid-filled cracks, yet the ground deformation mimics rising magma. Meanwhile, Dr. Giovanni Chiodini's team has found gas accumulating at 2 to 4 kilometers depth, precisely where the earthquakes are clustering. Computer models reveal a ticking time bomb. Massive pressure is building in a shallow chamber, held back from the deep magma below by just a thin layer of cracked bedrock. The true crisis here isn't just the geology, but the terrifying lack of certainty. When the experts can't agree on what is driving the unrest, predicting the outcome becomes a guessing game. Everyone is asking, are we watching a replay of the 1982 to 1984 panic, which ended with a whimper instead of a bang? Or is this the prelude to a disaster on a biblical scale? We have mountains of data, yet the picture remains dangerously blurry. Scientists are admitting they are flying blind, and that honesty is striking fear into the hearts of the locals. They would almost prefer a comforting lie over this reality. The warning signs are everywhere, yet despite the intensifying signals, Campi Flegrei is still stuck at alert level yellow. That is only the second step on a 4-tier ladder. But out of public view, disaster managers are frantically running simulations for a jump to orange or red. There is a massive canyon between scientific doubt and the duty to protect the public. You cannot order 500,000 people to abandon their lives without being 100% sure, and that certainty simply does not exist. Leaked government files show fierce arguments raging behind the scenes. One faction demands immediate evacuations from the danger zones, while others argue that a panicked exodus based on a false alarm could be just as deadly as the volcano itself. A stampede through those tight, winding streets could claim hundreds of lives before a drop of lava even falls. Quietly, in November 2024, the risk maps were redrawn. The red zone grew larger, and new escape routes silently appeared on town websites. Stockpiles of emergency aid have been shifted to depots safely beyond the crater rim. It is the elephant in the room. No one dares whisper the word evacuation. Money complicates the choice. Tourism, property values, and local commerce would be obliterated if the alert level went up. But hesitation carries a terrible price. Waiting could turn a problem into a tragedy. The ghost of the L'Aquila trial haunts every official. Nobody wants to face prison time for failing to predict a quake. Faith in the system crumbles with every mysterious tremor and every fresh fissure in the old walls. The volcano's Jekyll and Hyde nature makes forecasting a nightmare. Take the eruption of 1538 at Monte Nuovo. It was violent, sure, but contained. It formed a new hill without wiping out the region. However, this is the same beast that unleashed the Campanian ignimbrite, one of the most colossal blasts in European history. The question is, which version of the volcano are we dealing with today? The geological archives offer no peace of mind. Since it formed, this caldera has blown its top at least 70 times. Some were slow, oozing lava flows, while others were explosive cataclysms that literally redrew the coastline. Recent behavior is erratic, lacking any clear rhythm. The mountain acts on its own schedule. Go back 39,000 years to that massive super eruption, and you find ash layers stretching all the way from Italy, deep into Russia. Digs in Eastern Europe have uncovered ash blankets meters thick that choked out entire ecosystems and may have helped drive the Neanderthals to extinction. That blast pumped enough sulfur into the upper atmosphere to freeze the planet for years. Today's Campiflegrei still holds that world-ending power. The chemical makeup of the magma is virtually the same as it was back then. It is still loaded with explosive gases. If the big one hits, the destruction won't stop at the Italian border. History tells us it can be a minor hiccup or a global catastrophe, and we have no way of knowing which card will be drawn. But down in the Agnano district, the Earth is revealing secrets personal to those living on it. For the Esposito family, the danger isn't a statistic, it is their daily life. Giuseppe starts each day inspecting the spiderweb of fractures, tearing his kitchen wall apart. They showed up after the earthquake in May 2024 and expand every time the ground shakes. Sleep is a thing of the past for us, he admits. You can hear the heavy fatigue in his voice. This house has been in his bloodline for 3 generations. The foundation was poured in 1923 and survived countless tremors. But the year 2024 brought a terrifying shift. The tremors have evolved. They feel jagged, aggressive now. The window panes shudder in frames that have been warped by the moving earth. His daughter's bedroom looks directly out toward the Solfatara crater. When the wind dies down, the stench of sulfur seeps right through the sealed glass. The walls radiate heat, particularly after a storm, when you can see steam venting from the backyard soil. The neighbors packed up and fled in February, right after their floor tiles started snapping on their own. The mental strain is accumulative. Kids in Pozzuoli are running quake drills every single week, while the old-timers who lived through the exodus of 1984 keep go bags ready by the door. They pray those bags stay packed. Obscure geological terms like Bradyism have become dinner table talk, discussed as casually as a traffic jam or a rainy forecast. This is the reality of life on the lid of a pressure cooker. It means accepting that your world could end tonight. Even the technology meant to save them is falling victim to the volcano. Acidic fumes are eating through circuit boards, while the shifting earth snaps fiber optic lines like twigs. Sensors that were brand new a few months ago are already dying. When the ground swarmed in February, we lost 3 critical monitoring stations at the exact moment we needed them most. Engineers are in a desperate race to patch the grid faster than nature can wreck it. But money is tight, forcing a choice between repairing the dead units or buying new ones. Every sensor that goes dark leaves us blind in that sector. Right as the situation gets more complicated, at the CPAS site, the shaking was so violent it went off the charts, exceeding what the machines were built to handle. Gear designed for a 20-year lifespan is now being serviced every 30 days. In the Paisiarelli zone, the ground is so hot that crews cannot even get in to fix things. It is hard to keep an eye on a volcano when the mountain keeps attacking your surveillance gear. We are losing data exactly when the tremors peak, forcing experts to make educated guesses. It feels like the volcano is actively trying to mask its next move by taking out the cameras and microphones. The blind spots are growing. Meanwhile, INGV's supercomputers are burning out processors running 24/7 disaster models. Even the mild outcomes are horrific. Think superheated avalanches hitting the Naples Bay in less than 3 minutes. But the worst-case projections are straight out of a horror movie. You cannot outrun what is coming. The simulations show pyroclastic currents tearing across the landscape at 100 kilometers per hour. They would hit the city centers before the alarm even finished its first wail. The tight alleys of old Pozzuoli would turn into tombs, and the highways, they are built for rush hour, not for 500,000 terrified refugees trying to leave all at once. The chaos would trigger a domino effect of infrastructure failure. Naples International Airport is only 15 kilometers from ground zero. The country's primary north-south train tracks go right through the kill zone. Electricity, water, and internet would be gone in hours. If we look at the total collapse scenario, where the crater floor gives way, like it did 40,000 years ago, the Bay of Naples would drain, and then come back as a mega tsunami. Ash would bury Rome by dinner, and choke Milan within days. Air travel across Europe would ground to a halt. Economically, it would make every modern natural disaster look like a rounding error. This isn't science fiction. It is hard math based on the scars this volcano has left before. We have a ghostly warning from the crisis of 1982 to 84. Back then, the government dragged its feet until 40,000 people had already run for their lives. Only then did the official order come. The land bulged up by 1.8 meters, and the earth shook 20,000 times, and then, nothing happened. That non-event burned billions of dollars and shattered the public's faith in authority. Today is like looking in a mirror. Only the reflection is uglier. The uplift is worse now. The quakes pack more punch, and the gas output is intensifying. Still, the leaders are frozen, terrified of crying wolf again. Disaster planners are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Move too soon, you are wrong. Move too late, you are dead. The math deals in odds, not guarantees. A 10% risk of an explosion implies a 90% chance you are ruining lives for no reason. But when that 10% involves 500,000 human beings, the math fails. Every decimal point is a moral nightmare without a solution. The gap between what we know and what we need to decide grows wider every day, caught between geology and politics. Researchers can measure every variable except the one that counts: time. We know the magma is down there. We track every millimeter the ground rises. We log every single vibration. Yet, nobody can tell you if it blows tomorrow or in 100 years. We have odds, but we need facts. Meanwhile, 500,000 people go to work and school, living their lives on top of a ticking bomb. Kids sit in classrooms built on ancient lava flows. Tourists snap selfies at Solfatara, oblivious that they are standing on the bullseye of a potential apocalypse. In the markets of Pozzuoli, vendors hawk fresh catch. As the harbor physically lifts from the ocean, a ceaseless stream of data paints a picture of acceleration with no end in sight. We add sensors, and they only detect more alarms. Yet, this flood of data has not brought clarity. Each new study adds detail without a resolution. The volcano runs on geologic time, while humanity demands immediate answers. Ground temperatures are spiking, gas emissions are soaring, and earthquakes are multiplying. The trajectory is clear, but the endgame is hidden, with models offering dozens of scenarios. Each scenario is scientifically sound, yet most contradict the others. Campi Flegrei has become the ultimate test of human preparedness in the face of radical uncertainty. The evidence is undeniable. Something unprecedented is unfolding beneath Naples. These patterns defy previous crises, with acceleration smashing through historical baselines. Fracturing suggests the system is nearing its breaking point, yet failure could range from harmless steam to a caldera collapse. What threshold must be crossed before action becomes mandatory? In a world that craves certainty, Campi Flegrei offers only riddles. How should society respond when timelines are unknowable? When does scientific doubt yield to precautionary evacuation? Who makes the call when 500,000 lives hang in the balance? The ground keeps rising, the cracks keep spreading, the pressure keeps building. And somewhere beneath Pozzuoli, in the darkness between ancient magma and modern streets, the earth is preparing its next move.